they refused to call my race because they probably could not believe that I won. I think in that race we maybe had raised $2,000. My opponent had spent well over $20,000, $30,000, and put 2,000 yard signs all over Orange County. We put up maybe 70 yard signs. That's all we was able to do. And so that is where my faith lies in, is that we didn't have what others had, but God still did it. And even though it's come to me, Willie, everybody doesn't believe. I can't help how you believe. But I've seen him do it for me in my races in House of Timothy. I've seen him do it too many times. And so, I'm going to still keep talking about Jesus. I'm still going to do that. I mean, everybody know when I go and give my speech for politics, it always turns into a sermon anyway.
Hey guys, before we jump into the episode, I've got some exciting news to share. Our brand new website has just been launched and is live at paulbegleypodcast.com. This is now your one-stop hub for everything podcast related. So instead of scouring all over the internet looking for links to the show, you can stream every episode, watch our latest YouTube videos, check out our guest directory to see who's been on the show, and even read our brand new blog for extra content. And if you're enjoying this podcast, we encourage you to leave a review right on the site. There's no login hassle needed to do this. Everything's right there. It's easy to access, mobile friendly, and it's built for you. So while you're listening today, take a second to check it out. paulbegleypodcast.com. Now back to the show. Hello and welcome to the Paul Begley Podcast, where interesting and insightful guests intersect with world events, sports, and the paranormal. And today, Florida politics and community outreach. Our guest today is Dr. Willie J. Montague, a dynamic leader, entrepreneur, and advocate with over 2 decades of experience in both the business marketplace and ministry. As a nonprofit founder, small business owner, executive leadership coach, and public servant, Willie has dedicated his life to empowering others and strengthening communities. He's currently running as a Republican nominee for Florida Senate District 15, which takes place on September 2nd of this year. Dr. Montague, it's an honor to have you on the podcast today. Welcome.
Thank you. It's an honor to be up here. I'm excited.
So we were talking about before we started recording your nonprofit organization, the House of Timothy, and I definitely want to get into that. But before we start with that, I think it's probably beneficial for our guests to kind of hear your backstory. So if you could go into and tell us a little bit about your upbringing and what kind of led you to finding a calling and service.
Yeah, so I grew up in, I would guess you would say, a religious home per se. Grew up a missionary Baptist. Really was pretty much the only one that went to church as heavy as I did. But it was definitely a single parent home. My brother, who was 4 years younger than myself, we grew up in two different worlds per se. We are definitely the difference between night and day when it comes to personalities. But what I found was, as I started getting older and I watched my brother, he started getting into just a lot of trouble from a young age. I mean, from since we can remember, and so that led to going to juvenile detention when he was younger. That led to getting into marijuana, to pills, to heroin, to just the life of all these things. Stealing, back and forth into jail. 2 kids by the time he was 17. And then part of that, he just got released from spending 7 years in prison last August. In that time frame is when I recognized that if there was a program, if there was something that could have been the adhesive between what was going on inside of the home and in the community, that he may have not went that route. And so part of where I am today as far as service comes from, one, I've always, my first business per se was what I started when I was 16 years old. I've always just had a business mind. I had a nonprofit mind of not knowing it was nonprofit at the time, but just knew I just wanted to serve. And so it just grew. I got in politics and ministry and all that around the same time. So it's been, a while for me, even though I'm young, is just I just started young and just stayed the course because I believe that you know we have a community that's need and is greater than it was then. I mean, this we're talking about when I was 16. So the need, what I see and saw then, and what I see now, the need has increased, and it is only the more why we have to keep pushing forward. So that's a little bit of background. Single parent home, grew up in the church, got involved in and started my own church when I was also 16. Didn't know too much I was doing, just know I wanted to serve the Lord, and just had a lot of encounters, supernatural encounters with God that led me to where I am today.
It's pretty exciting, Willie. I'm so glad that you were raised in a Christian home and that you pursued, Christ and positive energy. It's sad that your brother took the opposite road, but I'm hoping that now that he's out of prison, that you've had a chance to talk with him. And is this? I mean, it's going to be difficult for him because getting a job after you get out of prison, it's difficult for fine people to hire. But have you had a chance to work with him as well as these other young men that you're helping?
Yeah, so when I think it was maybe during Thanksgiving or Christmas last year, I went and actually was able to spend some time with him. And what I'm finding is he wants to work. He wants to get out there, and we gave him a list. There was a job over where we live that or grew up that gave him an opportunity at a restaurant, and he moved up the ladder there. And so I'm seeing him really striving to do better. Again, when you've been gone that long and haven't seen the real world for 7 years, a lot has changed. So for him, it's just really like just having. He always speaks about, he don't like to hear negative things or things. It's he doesn't sometimes like to face where it's like a reality for him that he has to. He's not that 17-year-old that we dealt with at that time, that he's now in his 30s and has to live that way. So I just think it's just a growing process, but he definitely is doing better than he was when he got incarcerated. So that's a good
That's good.
start. Yeah.
That's good.
So Willie, I kind of had another question because do you have children? I'm curious about that.
I don't have any biological kids, but I have adopted two.
You have
out of the
adopted.
program.
Okay. Yeah, I think I heard you saying that on another interview.
That's awesome.
So I was curious, because I have two children, and Pastor has three. I'm one of them. Once I became a father, I try to make intentional acts, right, to show myself as a role model for my children. You and your brother had two distinct different paths that you took through your childhood and adolescence. Can you think of or pinpoint either a male figure or female figure, anybody that was kind of your guiding light or role model when you were growing up?
Actually, yes. So I consider her my spiritual mother at that time, Pastor Shirley Lewis. And she was someone that at first, my family didn't want me to go. She was we grew up in missionary Baptist. She was definitely apostolic Pentecostal. And so it was holiness. It was teaching about, about tongues, laying on our hands, and prophecy and the gifts. Whereas my family was not, was not
Right.
used to that, was not accustomed to that. But
Right.
I knew I was drawn to it. It was like I was, I got filled with the Holy Spirit in her living room, leaving us a Baptist service, and just learning the ways and learning righteousness. And so, if anyone I would say that was there, it would definitely be her in on the spiritual aspect of, like, don't play with God. Learn to be humble. Learn, learn to pray. Learn to fast. Learn. So that's where I would say that came from, as far as my spiritual awareness of just being in His presence and being able to hear Him, so that I'm able to get directions for what I do today.
That's amazing, and it really is amazing. God, I hope is she still alive?
She is.
Pastor?
Yep. She just turned 80 last year. Yep.
I guarantee you, she's full of the Holy Ghost, and there's not many left like that. Okay, not many that live that kind of life and who are that focused and love the Lord. So I thank God for that. So anyway, before you get into politics. So in other words, before you got into politics, is that when you founded the House of Timothy and got involved in community outreach and before even politics?
No, actually, politics came first.
Okay.
So back when I was back home, my high school teacher introduced me to Republican Democrat. He came to me. I don't know till this day, and he's still alive too. Till this day, I don't know what drew him to me in this area because there was so many other people that was there, especially where we grew up in a school that politics was not spoken about, and especially when you have the demographics like that, and especially most Black people are not Republican. So he came to me with a sheet of paper, and on that sheet of paper it had two different platforms, he didn't list, and I always share the story, he didn't list what those platforms were. Yeah, I mean, or what it was stated. It was just simply the pillars. And he said, Willie, I want you to go, because he knew I was in church. He's also a Christian. His son paid for a well-known band at that time. It was a Christian band named Decipher. And he said, Willie, I want you to go through this and read each one of these and tell me which closely lines up with your morals. And so I took the paper, I, read through it, and I pointed to what happened to be the Republican side. And so ran with that. I mean, it didn't really, he didn't take and go through a lesson. He just kind of went there. He didn't say much, but I took it upon myself, which I think he knew that was my personality. Like, I'm going to take something and run with it. So I did. I literally ran to the church. But it did not go well when I announced that I'm a Republican, and they were like,
No.
so they was like, boy, what, hush. And like, it was like, I'm thinking if the morals that I'm saying lines up with me as a Christian, then it would be the same for where I go to church. And that's when I learned that there was a great divide that I had no clue about. And this, I had to be, you know, I was in maybe a sophomore in high school. And so, it was, that was my journey. So I plugged here in the state of Florida. They're big with the Women's Federated Republicans. So it's like here is really big Republican groups that are women, but back home it was men groups. And so I went to this Carter County, the kind I grew up in, the men's group there. Met a guy named Mr. Sam who happened to pass away a couple of years back, but he took it upon himself to mentor me in something called Civitas in North Carolina, which teaches about civic engagement, know your laws and all those things. And he would pick me up every month, take me to get lunch, take me to Greenville, North Carolina, and let me watch and learn. Of course, I didn't understand all the words and the vocabularies at that time, but it was just sitting there, and I'm looking around like, man, do I even belong here? But he saw something in me. Fast forward, went back home. The sheriff that is the sheriff today, who was the youngest sheriff ever, he was 40 at that time, is no, sorry, 30 at that time. He I helped him with his campaign. He's still the sheriff today. And I just started working out there. And then I moved to Oklahoma when I went to Bible college at Rhema, and then started getting involved with the Republican Party there, started getting involved with the Tea Party Patriots. Did my first speech in front of a large crowd, it was like 2,000 people. The bus was coming through, the bus was running late. I had a little booth. They said, Willie, get up and talk about your organization. I got up and spoke. Everyone stood up. I don't even remember today what the speech was, but I do remember that it was definitely like a God moment because I didn't know what I was going to say, but I knew that this was a calling of mine also in politics. And so I stepped down the line. They had to stop the whole program because the line was lined up at our booth where people were donating and wanted to say, hey, we'll help you with cards and bumper stickers and all those things like that. And so it started from there. And then I ran for not Congress. I ran for city council in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. I had to be like maybe 22 or 23 years old. It was an open seat. The guy that was there passed away, and I just took a leap, and that was the journey. And then 2009, like right before I went to India in 2009, so maybe 2008, I started taking in some of these young men who we would meet like at restaurants. We were playing basketball, and I would just come over and they would come over. We would cook like Thanksgiving every day. I would talk to them about the Lord, minister to them. And one day, fast forward, we was before we went to India, we had a house full, 6 or so people there, having church service every day, shut-ins for 3 days, just fasting and praying. These was people who were either a little bit younger than me, or we had somebody that was a little older than me, and we just was hungry. We just sat in there in the presence of the Lord. And after that was where House of Timothy was birthed. It wasn't the concept it is today. It was literally me laying there, and I had a vision that we needed to have a house for guys and a house for girls, and it was House of Timothy and House of Deborah. So both of them was actually birthed at the same exact time, and we just ran with it. And then when I moved to Florida, is when the Lord brought that back to my spirit when I was working at another program, and He said, "This is what it will look like." And we received a prophetic word. It was September 11th, 2012. So this was before House of Timothy was even, because we didn't organize until 2015. And the word was, you're going to have a hospital for men. I didn't understand it, so I was like coming up with all like names and stuff, didn't know. But in 2014, I was laying there, and it was like the House of Timothy came back, and later on I went back to hear that word, and that's when it registered with me that this was the hospital for men. And so many of the boys that come or even older have said this was a place of refuge and rescues. We had people who are, marital issues or things going through, and people just come to such a peace. And so we've just had all different kind of people come through the doors, who have just been recovered and restored, just being in the presence, because we keep peace at House of Timothy.
Amen.
Wow.
Amen.
And I was talking to Pastor and Willie, you and I were talking right before we started recording too. I was reading, and I'm going to show people here as well, about this organization, because I think that this is like the best model, really, that local governments, state governments, I wouldn't put anything in the federal's hands because they'll just mess it up. But they should look at this model as a rehabilitation, as opposed to, rehabilitation for young men, as you're doing, as opposed to just, everybody trying to throw money at some DEI project and say, okay, everything's taken care of, and we've fixed the crime and poverty in the Black community. That's not how you do it, right? The organization that you've set up, that I'm seeing and I'm reading, and I would love to see it personally. Actually, I think that that's the correct way to go about it. Actual regeneration. I kind of describe it myself as like a Bible boot camp. And we'll look at some of the stuff on your website as how you have it set up as well.
Yeah, put that up there. Let's folks see that.
So while I'm pulling it up though, I had a question though for you, Willie.
Sure.
So the passion that you had to develop this, not only did did God speak to you about it, but also like you were speaking about your mentors growing up. So Pastor Shirley, I'm sorry, I forgot her name.
Lewis, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Shirley Lewis, and then did you say it was your high school teacher?
Yeah, he was a teacher. He was a coach, Mr. Kluntz. But yes.
Okay, so I mean, right there. So it's you kind of have coach / political involvement and bringing you to these events, and also mentoring you in that sort of way. But then you also had spiritual guidance from Shirley as well, that kind of puts you on that path. But I wanted to ask a little bit more specifically, because I feel like a lot of the passion of creating this organization also came from your childhood, as you described already with the path of your brother and yourself. But I think I was listening to an interview with you before where you were describing the community that you lived in the railroad tracks. I don't know if you could touch on that just a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So our community is actually still the same way today. Our community is still in many ways separated by a railroad track. The street is named Evans Street, but it is literally called the Promised Land. Is actually listed on there. So what happened with that is that at that time, that railroad track, which many communities had, would separate white communities from Black communities. And so on our side of the railroad track, which would be from Fisher Street or Bridges Street on back over to where we live.
And you're talking Orlando, Florida. Am I right?
I'm talking about North Carolina. I was born and raised in Carolina.
Okay, go ahead.
So when I grew up, we was always told not to go over the railroad track. And so what I did is I always was finding myself. The way I'm dressed right now is how I dressed since sixth grade. Like I would dress up with a button-down shirt, slacks. My mom didn't have to go buy jeans and tennis shoes. It was dress shoes. So I would always dress up. I would always go over onto the other side of the railroad track because I just, I saw the difference. I mean, when I literally speak of like, brick roads or palm trees that they started putting up. And then when you walk back over to our side of the street, you did not see those things. Now, whether or not that was part of the government, whether it was not, because it's not like Orlando, it's not like a big city where, it's gentrified like that. It just literally was the reinvestment of how the communities function. And that was also considered downtown, even though it was right over across the street. So what I did is I went over across the street. And part of the mission for my nonprofit, know-how was I took it upon myself to say, I need to raise money. I need to get out and let people know what I'm going to do. So I went to all the businesses that was on that strip and just walked in and I said, hey, I'm Willie Montague. This is the things that I'm trying to do. I think I had some little printout from, from the library printer and gave it to them. And not one person ever turned me away, told me to get out. It was never this racial divide that our side of the railroad track would paint it to be if we went over there. It was more like, sure, I can help. Here's $20, here's $10.
Right.
I took that initiative, went back over, and I was on a committee that actually helped restore a particular apartment complex that was Section 8 at that time, and it was a senior living place, and they were getting ready to tear it down to rebuild it. And that's when I realized that our communities, it's not that we can't establish it, it's that we don't have the mindset to think that we can do it. And so when I always use that story about the railroad track, because nothing separated us but literally a railroad track. It was the same city, same opportunity to put palm trees, same opportunity for brick roads, same opportunity to do the same things that was on the other side. We had to develop a poverty mindset, on the other side, that we thought that was not for us, so we could not obtain it. And I truly believe God allowed me to break free of that mindset for that purpose, because if you think about it, as I said, our families, that's all that you heard through generations. So in our minds, the kids was told not to do that, and then they want to tell their kids. Now it's kind of done cleaned up in a way different now. But at that time, it's like everybody knew. You pass it down, boy. What you going over there for? What you going to do with them white folks? They gonna hang you. It was
Right.
that kind of conversation. So in your mind, you're like, well, you're scared to cross the street.
Right.
Um, and then when you realize that that was not what was happening, it was literally a promised land. But we just like with in the Bible with the promised land, we may see it, but we don't think it belongs to us. And so I felt like if we would have just crossed over, we would see like, wait, they're people just like us. So anyway, that's the
That's
story of that.
well, I think Willie, that's a great explanation and an analogy, because what happens is there's there's a mindset, a poverty mindset sometimes, or a racial mindset. And I'll tell you, some of the white folks, yes, they were glad that you came. I mean, you were bringing hope, you were bringing energy, you were bringing what they envisioned would be the right thing to happen. And then, but there's also folks on the white side that they're afraid to go over on the other side.
Yeah.
They're afraid, you get over there, you're going to get jumped, you're going to get this or that. And they preach that on their side. And I don't feel that way, but you know what I'm saying? There is stigmas, and those stigmas are bad for both communities, terrible for both communities. And so if somebody can bridge the gap, if somebody can cross the tracks, I mean, and then all of a sudden people start realizing, wow, I met a young man. He came over here. He's got a vision for his community. This is what we want. This is great. Immediately they started supporting you. They started backing it. They wanted that to happen. And that is great initiative for you as a young man to make that decision to break out of the stigma of your community and And a lot of it, I have to say, some of the leaders of the African American community have kept the people down, and don't tell them that they can have success, they can succeed, they can. I mean, am I right, Willie?
You're right. I mean, we see you have Jamal Bryant, you have Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, and the list goes on of because a lot of the poverty mindset, even though it is painted as if it's not, comes from church leaders in the Black community. And oftentimes, because they have the loudest mouths, they have the most influence when it comes to spiritual knowledge, but also when it comes to community knowledge. And so if you look now, one of the loudest outspoken pastors, quote unquote, Jamal Bryant, is consistent at making sure that it is Black versus white, and still declaring that Jesus is Lord. So that is problematic for me, because now people will think like, well, Jesus would want us to, this is what he would want us. It's injustice. We need to go, but there's a way to do everything. And this, Pastor, that the Bible says all things are lawful, but not all things are expedient.
Exactly.
So just it may seem right does not mean that at that moment is right to do it, especially in the way that it's being done. And so, I find like the Black community and its leaders have done an injustice to us, to the young people today. And when it's too late is when we see on the news people are having press conferences 10 years later after siding with the side that is basically eradicating a Black culture because of ignorance. And so you have people crying, oh, my child, my grandchildren, oh, my nephew, because they're murdered and shot in those communities. And yet it's still, it's now coming to light on wanting to have solutions. But I believe solutions has always been there. It's just, we're just told that we have to have hate and anger, and a divide. And so because of that, we won't work together to bring a solution. So.
Right. That's a great point. A wonderful point. That's what I was trying. I didn't want to call out Al Sharpton and those guys. I'm glad you did. You get away with it a lot better than I will. Yeah. But it's true. They preached a message that kept. Yeah, I understand they were trying to be civil rights leaders, and they're but they're not. I'm sorry, they're not. Reverend Sharpton is not Martin Luther King. Okay, he ain't got the same message. He don't have the same message. King knew that he wanted to raise the people up and incorporated, and he had a positive message, and he has a message of hope, and he had, I see a dream. And what Sharpton's been preaching is there ain't no dream. You just got to learn how to live with what our situation. We got to get ours when we can, and that ain't going to cut it. And the same thing happens sometimes over on the white side, and that is they will say, look, no need you even communicate with these folks. It's never going to work. Blah 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 blah. You got to do this. You got to do this and that. No, that's not right either. That's just not right. We are one people. We are human race. We are God's children, and we are to work together and love one another. And so again, it takes people like you, Willie, that's willing to cross the tracks, willing to break the chains. And I would love. I know when you ran for Congress. I mean, I supported you when you ran for Congress. I support you now. I wish I was in your district. I'm not in your district. I'd be certainly voting for you. But if anybody watching this right now, put this man into the Florida Senate. He will do wonders for his community. He'll do wonders in the state of Florida and his community there in Orange. And you're part of Orange County, right? Am I right?
Correct. Yeah.
You would do wonderful, wonderful, wonderful things because you have the mindset of success. You have a mindset of God and the mindset of success. And so I support you in that 100%.
Yeah. And Willie, I mean, that's why I wanted to bring up the railroad track story, because it's so powerful, really. And I don't even really know how old you were. I'm guessing you're a young man, maybe a teenager when you did that, but it's still, it doesn't even really matter how old you were when you were doing that. It was probably helpful if you were a young man, because, you weren't listening to all of the noise that you were being told, passed down from generation to generation. And it happens on both sides of the track.
Yes,
But
it
what's
does.
important about your story is you had the courage to walk over and try to make a difference, right? So the nicer side of the track, I guess, as you probably referred to it as, wanted things to change on the other side of the track. And you were the representative of that to come across the track and say, hey, I want things to be nice. But regardless, you know, I'm sure there was some sort of racial tension there. Maybe not so much racist as it's just just realizing, hey, this is a young black man, I'm a white man. But regardless, when you had a common goal to make things better in your community, everybody was on board with that.
That's
And I
good.
think a lot can be learned from that story, not only just in racial relations, but also Democrat Republican, which is really hugely divided in the same sort of manner. They just call themselves something different. But let me share this your website for House of Timothy, if I can add it back on somehow. There we go. So I wanted to. Another question I heard when I was listening to some podcasts with you was, "What is Timothy?" So you have it right here on the website, though. So Timothy or Second Timothy, all Scripture is breathed out by God and profitable for teaching, for reproof, for correction, and for training in righteousness, that the man of God may be complete, equipped for every good work. And that's really the Scripture focuses on. If you read through about the mission here, and I'll let you describe it instead of me just reading, but I think that the Scripture really fits exactly what the mission of the organization was. So I'll leave it to you, Willie, to kind of go through the mission statement with us.
Yeah, so the mission of House of Timothy, when we first formed it, we didn't necessarily have the mission. I just knew the purpose that I needed to help these young men. And I kind of back up when I said I was in Oklahoma, and we had these young men coming in, and I mean, it was to the point where they were having to sleep on the dining room table because we were just having so many coming in, and before we even officially formed here in the state of Florida, and but the mission, when I really looked at it, and we just recently lowered our ages, but I was having a youth event, or someone came to me and wanted to talk to me about their son. And at that time, they did not tell me how old that their son was. They just was saying like, hey, I went to school, I picked him up, he started crying. I asked him, why is he crying? He said, everybody's getting picked up by their dad. I don't have a dad. And I said, oh, well, we can help. How old is he? And
Mm.
she said, he's 7. And that's when I knew that this was far and widespread, way far greater than just, working. Because at one point when we first started, we were 18 and 25 because we were trying to bridge that gap in maturity. Then I later lowered the ages to 13 to 17 because I'm like, well, that's where my brother was. Let's grab hold of that. And then just recently we lowered the age to 7. So from 7 to 17. And so our mission, we see a lot of things with drugs, sexual abuse, addictions. We see a lot pornography. There's a lot of things that happen. And part of what we do at House of Timothy is not only do we educate, we equip, we empower, but we make sure that these young men live or leave with having a hope. And that's why we like we're like the hope dealers, but we we like to see them be able to
The hope dealers, I like that.
to leave with a purpose, and to thrive. And the picture that you see there is we was in Miami. So I did Orlando during the week, and I would go to Miami on the weekends. So this is our group from Miami, some years back, where we were actually feeding the homeless. And so they had activities that we would require them to do. People would sponsor them to go to the movies. I think this was when Black Panther first came out, the very first one. So that's how long ago it was. And
Yeah.
so we just took them all. I think we got on one of those buses, and we just all took the bus, went to the movie theater. We ate pizza. We had something called Tool Shed Conference, which was like, everybody has a tool shed, and that's where you teach the young men how to build things. So we did a conference based off of that. that. And these young men was part of that. We had speakers, and then we had the ladies, which were their mothers, came in and they cooked them lunch. And so part of the mission with it is for us to really just establish not only Christ, that they understand who Christ is, but they understand that they can be young men of valor, that they can be assets and not liability. I love to use that because oftentimes in communities, especially when you deal with Black and brown communities, often maybe looked at like it's their liabilities, but there is assets there. If we can, if I people always say, well, you can't help all of them, and that is very true, but I will definitely try. So we have taken in some of the, and just to back up with House of Timothy, which may not be on the website, we take the what is considered extreme risk. So we're not just taking young boys who may have just spoke back to their mom or their dad. We're talking about high risk where they've already committed some crimes that would be charged as a felony if they was an adult. And so the court system and the DCF always brings them here because they always say this when they drop them off: if we know any place that will show them love and will give them opportunity, it will be the House of Timothy. So when they come here, it's not just we're bringing them here because they just did some minor thing. No, these are some serious stuff, and we take them in just like they need a home. They need somebody to spend time with them, and we don't see that. We've had a couple little ruffles, but we never seen where they destroy the home. They have that level of disrespect. To me, it's always when they first get here, they realize that there is hope here. So anyway, that's kind of long to that. But the my response to the mission outside of what we have on our website is that it is definitely a mission of hope. And we have organizations out there. Of course, it can become cliche over time because, oh, we all doing the same. But I can tell you for sure that my heart is just to see this transformation in it. It takes a lot of work. As I shared before, today is our 10th year birthday or anniversary, and so I'm excited about it that we made it 10 years. And hope to 10 years when it seemed like it wasn't going to be possible. We are here today. So.
Okay, here's a question for you. So I know there's successes that's come out of this. There's some young men whose lives completely turned around, and is there anyone that stands out that has went on to really be successful and really make a difference?
Oh yeah. So this young man Taylor, I met Taylor at another program, and so he ended up coming to ours when I opened up House of Timothy. And Taylor is a mastermind. I'll tell a quick story about Taylor, then I get to the testimony of where he is today. When I first met Taylor, I used to let all the boys always knew like I was like the uncle. I'm going to kind of let him slide with some things. So this is when I was working at the other program before I started House of Timothy. So I remember we had to set the alarm on the staff door every night. This alarm faced their room so that way if they ever walked by, even to the bathroom, it would go off. And so I set the alarm that night, didn't pay attention. So all of a sudden I'm getting this bam on the staff door, and I'm like, how is the alarm not going off? And because I'm hearing bam, so I'm thinking I'm dreaming. So that's why I'm like, okay, let me just, I'm so caught up in this place. And so I'm hearing on the other side, I'm hearing like, Pastor Josh, because that's what they call me. Pastor Josh, my middle name. And I'm saying, I'm like, this is a woman's voice. How's there a woman inside of the male, the guy's side of the cottage? So I wake up, and it was the girl's side. It was their staff. And I'm like, how'd you get here? What's happening? And she was like, they ran away, they escaped. And I was like, they ran away. So I go back and find out that this is how Taylor is. Taylor went in, and every time he would go to the back, he would work a little, do something. He had got a butter knife and took the alarm system apart and disconnected the sound of the alarm, not the part with the light. So for us, it looked like it was set, but he disconnected the sound, put it back, and so that way they could get out. So he's masterminding that. So we fast forward, he comes to us. He goes through this. He dealt with a lot with his father being absent, his mother single mother raising these kids. He had a younger brother, and so we did all we can do, helped him, spoke to him. He got out. When he finished with us, He moved to Lakeland. He started working, I believe, with his grandparents. He ended up starting his own business. A couple of years ago, he had reached out and said, "Hey, are you still doing House of Temp?" I said, "Of course." He blessed us with $500. This is a young man we helped, came back, poured back into House of Timothy.
Wow.
We spoke with him. He one time I had to be in Lakeland for a training. I told him. He said, "Let's meet up for lunch." I met him for lunch with another young man that I was just starting to work with, so he got to kind of interact and share with him, like, "Hey, it may be tough, but stay the course. Look
Yeah.
where I am today." And I'm happy to report that he plays the piano. Is great at playing the piano, so he owns his own business. He's engaged in getting married now. And he's walking, and he was one that just he had this thing where he didn't want to believe in Christ because of all the things he experienced. That how can there be a Jesus, and I'm going through this? But I could tell you the experience. And I'm trying not to get emotional with this, but we were sitting at we were facing the landlord at that time wanted to sell the home where we were at. And so we were facing, and I had told the boys, and I said, what I taught them was we're always going to pray, because we don't know, no matter the circumstances. And so every night, up until it was time that we had to leave, up until that night, every night we would play worship music and just pray. And they would come out. And so I remember that he would always be joking, like he's, playing around, and we always just let him be. But that particular night, he was by the door, and I'm thinking, like, oh Lord, he's over there playing. But no, he ran up to me with tears flowing down his face and bawling, crying, and he fell to his knees and said, "I believe, I surrender." And so if I could share with anybody that's listening, that no matter what the hopelessness of or what it may look like, is that the consistency of us spreading, one, the message of love, two, the message of Christ, and that we continue to be true to what House of Timothy was, that transformation came. And so here it is, now he's in his 20s, he's getting married, has his own business, and able to testify of it. So anyway, that is one of the stories
That's
of House of Timothy and what's on the other side of it.
It's great right there. That's a life that was saved. That was a home that's now being reestablished. That was a person who knows where he would have wound up. Who knows what it went, but instead he got a foundation. He got hope. He got faith. He got love.
Right.
And those are so powerful. The greatest of these is love. Right. I think, Willie, no matter how much structure, how good you set this up, and I know it's good, and all that, the number one thing that you're showing to these young men is love, believing in them, showing the love. And I'm trying not to get emotional myself. I mean, I'm touched, blessed by this story. I really am.
Well, I was telling Willie before we started as well. I was reading through, and I was scrolling through. I guess I can put it back up there. But if you go to the website here, houseoftimothy.org, this page is /regeneration, and you look at some of the things that you have on here. You're not hiding anything, and it's not just fancy language saying, "Hey, we're trying to help the community." No, you tell them, "Hey, we're a 501c3, young men 7 to 17." I don't know if you expanded that age. 12-month program, right? When I was reading through it, I was like, man, and then I started reading, I was like, ooh, rigorous work schedule, class work, individual counseling, obviously mentorship if they're already in this program. These men are they're coming here intentionally to change their life, and or whoever their sponsor may be to bring them there. But this goes through, I mean, you can read the whole thing, the whole admission process, and it tells you like, man, I'm trying to find the one spot. No smoking, chewing tobacco, substance abuse or drugs, right? No, we're even changing how we're talking. No talking boastfully about your past sins, sexually explicit or suggestive talk. It's like, stripping them away from all of these negative portions of their community and or however they were being raised, but also taking things away from them that are harmful, alcohol, tobacco, drugs, pornography, even down to music has to be approved, reading materials approved, personal devices, things of that nature. I'm not going to read the whole thing right now, but you can go in there and you can see all of it. And I was like, man, this is really, it's
Yeah,
not,
it's
it's
intense.
not, it's intense, but it's necessary. I mean, I was in the Navy, as our audience knows, and boot camp was, a lot of people laugh about it, like, oh, it was boot camp. But like, no, if you really think about some of the things that they put you through in boot camp, it's stripping away some of that mentality that they want you to get rid of in order to shape and mold you to what we're supposed to be. And that this kind of the literature in here kind of reminds me, this is sort of like boot camp, but to build a man, right? So based off of what the organization is named after. I think it's just it's great. And I was telling Willie too, I think this should serve as a model in local and state levels for rehabilitation, as opposed to just throwing men in
Instead of
prison.
incarceration, how about some rehabilitation?
Yeah, exactly.
A program. Can you imagine, Willie, the House of Timothy, a national program where the young men that are between this age are getting in trouble, even committing felonies, that you say, hold it, before we do incarceration, we're going to do rehabilitation. We're going to try to rebuild. We're going to make you better than you were. We're going to make you the bionic man. Okay. The new man, which is what you are in Christ. You become a new man. But I mean, really, I love this concept. I really do. And man, we need to have leadership, and we got to have them in political position to bring this kind of thought and change of America. We have to have political leaders that can bring this forward. We got to.
I definitely agree, and that's why I'm so I'm in both arenas, because I feel like people, they don't hear. You see a lot of programs that come up on a state or federal level, and a lot of times I've always getting asked this question, well, why don't you go? And I said, I would love to know, how you go about getting some of these funds so we can continue the mission. But it seemed like it's already like set in place for people who they could open a program last week and get there, because it's always set up. It always seems like those that are actually doing the work often are the ones that get the least exposure or finances to do it. And so, I'm glad that you guys are asking questions. I was just on a TV show, was about 2 weeks ago, and I thought the conversation was going to be both, House of Timothy and politics, and it turned out about politics. I'm like, I really try to always shed light on House of Timothy, because at the end of the day, win or lose in politics, my heart and mission is to help save these lives of these boys. And I always want to shed light on that, because there's somebody that may be listening and have, a nephew, or, a cousin, a brother, a son that needs the program, or there may be someone out there that says, hey, I got a trust fund or something. I want to, have some land, because we do. I mean, we want to not just be in a house. We want to be in a compound, some acres to build the whole thing where we don't have to worry about, paying overhead costs for rent and these things. So, I'm thankful again for the opportunity, because this is, dear to my heart, and we just want to make sure that people know that we exist, and that we're here to serve.
Thank you, Willie, for stepping up and doing these things. And anybody out there watching, you want to support the House of Timothy, go to the houseoftimothy.org and you might say, well, I live here, I live in Arkansas, or I live, make a financial contribution. Okay. And so that Willie can continue to move this vision forward and make a difference in these kids. So I want to say that right now.
I was telling Pastor before we started too. I was like, hey, I don't usually give to charitable organizations, just because I've read about different organizations that don't put the funds in the right spot. Where I was reading through this, and I'm like, man, this really is you've already put it into motion for things that I've thought about. Like, they really should, instead of me taking action on it, which probably should take action on it, but you're probably better suited for it because of your life experience anyway. But like, hey, they should really develop some sort of rehabilitation program that actually makes sense, instead of just go to straight to prison. Here's a felony, and now the rest of your life is ruined. Right? That is just not the way to take care of people that made a mistake. Everybody's going to make a mistake, or everybody already has made a mistake. So yeah, I was going to say, I was reading through, for anybody thinking about it that's kind of touched by this organization, I would encourage a contribution. I went ahead and signed up for quarterly contributions myself, just because I believe in the work that you're doing over there, Willie.
Definitely. Thank you.
I wanted to actually, I wanted to move to what we have scrolling at the bottom. So, Willie, you're currently running for as a Republican nominee for Florida Senate District 15. That I believe the election is September 2nd, if I have that up there correct.
Correct.
So Pastor and I were talking. So for anybody that might be watching this, like, oh, he's running for senator, can you put the distinction as far as what you're actually running for? It's state level Senate. Is that correct? So I'm still confused too.
Yeah, I always explain this that we have our federal Congress, which entails our senators, our representatives, and then of course the president of the United States. Well, in some documents it states that the governor is the president of the state. And so just like that, the state has the same type of government. So you have the governor, you have your Congress, which is made up of your state senator and your state House representatives. Every state has the same, and here we happen to have 40 state senate districts, and so I think there's 120 something House reps, and then there's 40 state senators. And so the district I'm running for is State Senate District 15. So that district is all in Orange County. It covers, Orlando. It covers Eatonville and different parts of it. I ran for Congress for District 10 the last few years, and this Senate district is about the same size as the congressional district. It's a huge district, and it covers much of the same area which I was already running for. So having that name ID and whatnot. So the reason I even jumped into this race is because Senator Geraldine Thompson, she passed away, I think February. And when she passed away, of course, that left an open seat. The governor called for a special election. I outright became the Republican nominee because there was no Republican that jumped in. The Democrats, they have 4 people in their race. And so their primary election is June 24th. And then that person, whoever that person is, then, will go back and forth until September 2nd. I don't like considering things blue and red because I feel like it's all about, one, the work that you put in, and two, also the message. So whether you win or not, I don't think it's winning because it's blue or winning because it's red. I feel like, as long as you're getting your message out, which I've ran in this area several years, and people say, Willie, you run and you don't. I said, well, I'm not going to move to what is seemed to be more Republican, just because I want to try to get in there. And absolutely, I would love to get in office because I do have some things I believe can really only get done through legislation. Um, and I have tried. If people ask that question, have you tried to work with some of our legislators in Tallahassee? Is just, they have their agenda and that's it. So I feel like if I was sitting at the table as one of them, that gives me a more of a ups to be able to get some of these things across the line, which is like, more things for fatherless programs and things like I do with House of Timothy, but also some other projects that I work on when it deals with, I work in the sector, and I don't know if people are familiar, you're familiar with the Kava community. Kava. But I'm heavily involved in that. I just held a KavaCon convention about 2 weekends ago, and we had about 500 people in attendance, way more than we thought. We only thought we was going to have about 200. And so when we had this convention, a lot of it is Tallahassee is putting down some laws that are coming against it. Why am I all for Kava? Because a lot of the veteran community uses Kava for their PTSD versus using over-the-counter medication, pharmaceuticals that way, or taking other drugs or getting caught up in drugs and alcohol to numb that pain or the mind. So Kava, it is a Pacific Island root. It's from the pepper family, but it is highly used to help with pain and anxiety, and it's natural. And so I've been part of the community for about 8 years, not because, and I'm to back up, I've never had any addictions issues. My help with House of Timothy is because of my brother and also my own upbringing of a fatherless home. But I started getting involved in this community because I was looking at this as an opportunity for House of Timothy. I thought, what is there a way that we could get parents to sign off to us, incorporating some nice, flavored drinks that we can give to these young men, where if they're coming in and they do have addictions, or they're coming in and they are dealing with
Sure.
traumatic, issues in their life, that we're not giving medication like, hey, give them, this, Xanax, like,
Yeah. Right.
because we've had it. We've had young men come
Right.
here that on some heavily dosed medication, and here they are, like, if they start taking this and they're like 14, 15 years old, imagine what it does to their psyche as they get older. And even to some of them, like, I've heard feedback where some of them are not able to reproduce. And so I feel like this pharmaceutical things that they're giving them is also stopping the restoration of the nuclear family, because these kids can't have kids eventually when it's that time. So anyway, so that's part of why I really am focused on getting into, the state Senate seat, because I feel like there's several things that I want to see brought to the forefront. I really feel like I'm the person that can bring it out, and that I'm just not a person that's swayed at all. And so I stand for what I stand for, and partly the reason why I probably don't get support from either side sometimes, because I do have a strong belief system in community and doing what is right and making it happen. And so I'm very much grassroots. So oftentimes, how that goes. You're fighting a lot harder than the person who can drop $200,000 in their campaigns.
Yeah. Let me bring out that. And so this is very important, because it would be great that Willie would win this seat, and then would have, there's only 40 seats in the Florida Senate. He would be one of the 40. He could represent his community. But I know you're going to be up against a little bit of a Democrat machine, and I don't know who the person that's going to win. I don't know if he's already in the Democrat political arena, because there's 4 of them. You don't know which one's going to win, but I'm hoping you've been there a long time, and you've been running politically, and your name is out there, and it's good name. It's a good name. You've done good work. So how can you get over the top and get the folks who normally vote Democrat to say, hey, wait a minute, we're going to vote for Willie, because Willie cares about our community. Willie can get things done. Willie's the man to get behind. I feel like there's got to be a way to get that message across.
Well, Pastor Paul, I tell people straight up, especially this seat, we have a super majority in Tallahassee, and there's absolutely almost impossible for Democrats to get anything or their agenda across the line, because
Right.
it is a Republican ran Congress per se.
Yeah.
And so I tell people that straight up when I go out to talk to Democrats and everybody. I said, I get it. You're used to voting Democrat. You don't like I'm a Republican because you associate that with President Trump, and that's absolutely fine. But if you are coming to me about, your housing situation, and you coming to me about taxes, if you're coming to me about homeowners insurance, if you're coming to me about the quality of life necessities that you have, I can absolutely tell you that the person that can get it done is the Republican, because we have the supermajority and we have had it for years. And so we can get things across the line that the Democrats haven't. And it's proof, because every single Democrat that has won in a seat that's here in Orange County, although they're Democrat and although it looks great for the Democrats to celebrate, they don't get anything accomplished because they can't. They don't have the majority. And so that their bills may get across a committee or two, but they never get it to the finish line to get voted on and to get signed by the governor. And so I tell people straight up, at the end of the day, you may not like every single policy or some of the things that I stand for, but if you want to have your voice actually make it to the governor's desk, that's the best route to take. So I just tell them, like, that's just is actually the truth of how it works.
It's exactly how it works. It's the truth. And I can say, Ron DeSantis is a good man. And there's no doubt in my mind that if you are bringing forward a legislation that is going to make a difference in these people's lives, because you know exactly what it needs to be.
Right.
I can see it getting through. I can see it getting signed. I can see it becoming a bill that passes. It will change. It will make a difference in the community. And that'll open eyes, I think, also to the community that, look, Willie's right. we can get stuff done, and we can make a positive change. So that's a major reason, folks, that are watching. If you're living in Orange County and you're in that portion of Orange County, I think Orange County actually has got 2 different districts in it. I'm not sure, but Orange County is
Yeah,
it's so
it
big.
is. It has multiple districts in it, but all of District 15 is inside of Orange County.
Yeah. So this is important. It's really important for the District 15 community is to have the right representative in the Florida State Senate, and Willie's the man.
Absolutely. And I mean, and that's like you were mentioning, Willie, and I'm putting up some of your campaign initiatives or what you're running on up there, which is right on your website. But like you were mentioning before, you know, that's part of the reason that we're doing this interview with you, not only to, you know, highlight yourself and your successes and House of Timothy, but also we got to give a voice to somebody who's running as a representative. There's too many times that in, you know, smaller or local or even state, even at like state senator seats, there's not a lot of coverage. People, if somebody's trying to actually vote informed, which unfortunately I feel like only 15% of people do that, it's very difficult to filter through, you know, somebody else's however they want to twist the news article, or whoever's in charge of the news article for the city of Orlando, right? Whatever news organization they're working for, they're going to twist it to make sure that you vote for the person that they want you to vote for, as opposed to, hey, let's have Willie Montague on our podcast here, and then you can watch it anytime. It's a whole hour conversation with him. We talk, you know, we went through everything. But not only that, but, you know, relatable personalities. I feel like there's a lot of people that get a lot of votes that don't have relatable personalities at all. And if somebody were to hear them talk for an hour, they definitely wouldn't get any votes. But Willie, I'm going to scroll through these if you want to just talk about some of your initiatives that you have here on the website.
Enhancing public safety.
Yeah,
you know how big that is in that community. There's a lot of crime. There's a lot of problems. This is a big one. If he can help, they can pass laws. They could do some things. They can help public safety, right, Willie?
Yeah. So there is, you know, our crime. It was decreasing when we had the last. So we had a big debacle here not too long ago where Governor Santos removed the state attorney for this area. And then she went through the election process, got reelected, and that's when crime actually went back up. So we do have a serious issue with some of these left-leaning, you know, elected state attorneys who are not, they're not keepers of the law. And so because of that, we're seeing our community suffer. I think I just saw something pop up before it was time to get up here for the interview, where it was two individuals caught in that was injured from a shooting here in Orlando just today. And so, you know, I've been seeing the news of that in Orlando again. Now, before, I'm telling you, when we had Judge Andrew Bain that was appointed by DeSantis, that crime went down. He was locking them up, sending them away. Crime started decreasing. Murder started decreasing. As soon as that election was over in November, and Monique Worrells get in there, instantly we start seeing the news pop up: Orlando shooting, Orange County shooting, this person, that, and it's because she's just not a keeper of the law. And so I feel like in the Senate position, we'll be able to lay out some legislation that helps protect communities like District 15, whereas before it's all about talk. It's all we want to protect the community, but we only want to protect that part of the community where it's favorable for us. We don't want to step on nobody's toes, because a lot of the criminals that's in District 15 are some of the people that are either elected or formerly elected, and they're friends with each other. So they don't want they don't want to put the hammer down, because they're going to find out that those covers going to come off and find out that these are some of the same people that we see every day that's elected officials who are committing the crimes.
Yep. There you go.
And also, I think another key issue that you're running on, and Willie was just asking your position on education and what do you want to change in the for your community there.
Well, you know, especially in one of the zip codes, I think it's 32808. that they're reading below the national level. And so you have 12th graders reading at a 4th grade level. And so while we're focusing on DEI and we're focusing on, wanting people of color to be in a position because they're of color, and not focus on the fact that our children in these communities cannot read, or most of them cannot write, but they definitely know how to hold a gun. They know how to
Mm.
go out and dribble a basketball, because we think that that's all that they can do, because hey, we want to give them, we want to send them to Boys and Girls Club because we just want them to be out of our hair. We need to focus on education that educates. That's why I believe in private schools. I believe that private schools and homeschooling, or micro schools, are very important to districts like District 15, because it allows. And a lot of times the parents say, "Well, I can't be home with my kid. I can't do this," and I'm like, we get it. It's not for everyone, but there is programs and opportunities to be able to help these kids, because if you're at work and they're going to school and they're coming home and they're failing anyway, and then you're sending out, your 18-year-old who knows how to go on TikTok, but they don't know how to read, Think and Grow Rich, that's a problem. And so, that education to me is get all of that junk out, all of the nonsense that is not necessary in education, and focus on the simplicity of education, the reading, the writing, the arithmetic, the ability to be able to just learn. I even put myself back in school, and I can tell you, yeah, I'm I'm 37, so going back to school from things that I'm like, "Whoa, this is way different." But I realize I want to learn. I want to see something at a greater level, and I believe that that's important when it comes to legislation. That legislation needs to protect the students. It needs to protect the teachers and the parents, but beyond all, it needs to give the power back to the parents, so that they're educating their children and not being criminalized, because some parents at one point was almost being criminalized because they wasn't sending their kids to school because the school system is failing, especially in most of these schools here in Orange County. And so, when these kids can't help what zip code they live in for their schools, but that goes back to what dollars are we allocating to these schools, and
Mm.
making sure that the schools have the proper resources to do it. No, we don't want to just keep throwing money. I know that was something that someone came at. Well, do we want to just keep throwing money? It's not about throwing money. It's about we have money. What are we doing with the money we have? Balance the budget, strip out what's not necessary, and educate these children. So.
And the fact that you be for private schools to be funded by the state, or at least get a voucher, a certain amount of money going to homeschools or to private schools besides the public school. I mean, would you
Yeah,
be?
and we have that in the state of Florida. Governor DeSantis
Yep.
passed a bill that the money can go with the child. So that's why I was saying that it's really not necessarily an excuse for some of the parents to say they can't do it. Because if it was costing $4,000 to $8,000 a student to be able to go to school, DeSantis has said that we'll give you that money for you to put your child in private school or homeschooling. Well, if you get that money and you can't be home, hire a private teacher that can come to your house and put them, because they have so many even with the boys that we have that go to school, some of the activities we can't do here. But what I'll do is there's activities outside. I can't remember the name of it, but there's like groups of homeschools that meet at parks and stuff like
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
where
Mm.
you can interact with other students and kids, and still have the activities that other children have. So I just feel like if you have a governor that has released the funds for you to be able to do that, you have the opportunity to do it. We need to do it. And but what we're seeing, though, they're actually having a recruiter. I think they're hiring a recruiting team here in Orange County to recruit students to come back to public school, because so many have left. So I think
Good.
we're making a stride where parents are like waking up.
Yeah.
But they literally had to spend money, which I think was ridiculous, to spend money to hire a team to go out and knock on people's door to ask parents to bring their kids back to public school.
So, quick distinction, or sorry, you might have said it, but I didn't catch it. Um, is this money also going towards not just like, hey, here's money to have, to homeschool your children, but you can also use it as like essentially tuition assistance for a private school?
Yeah, it will go in. You can literally
Okay.
take that money, and we already even before this law was passed, I believe last session, that it was already allocated for there to be the McKay Scholarship. There's so many scholarships here that parents can apply for that actually pay for their kids to go to a private school. So thank God to Governor DeSantis that he is heavily involved in the homeschool and private school sector, where it is like literally like zero excuse to why you can't do it. And I get it. Everybody doesn't feel like they're capable of being home, and which you don't have to. There's so many different programs out there nowadays.
Well, I think actually, so, and then you mentioned they're coming with a recruiting team that's like, hey, we need more kids at public school. Actually, the public school should be happy. So now the student teacher ratio is smaller, so the education should actually improve with that.
What you're dealing with here, the problem is what you're dealing with, and Willie knows this, that the money goes into the schools based on the number of kids that are there. But
and test scores.
Where does the money go? How much actually? Exactly. That you got this top heavy group who's been milking the cow for a long time up here, and all of a sudden, the administrative cash ain't coming in because DeSantis wants to make sure it goes with the child, and that the child can go to a good homeschool or a good private school or wherever it may be, and that including Christian schools. I mean, it's so amazing. So what's happening is Department of Education is starting to wonder why they even exist, because they have failed. Let's face it. And I'm saying across America, they have failed Americans' children. And that's why the test scores are so low, because the money was going there. Is like Willie said, they had plenty of money to work with. They were the fat cats up here, and the kids are being left down here. The schools are crumbling. And now at least the parents and are empowered to make the choices for their children, and the funds can follow it. And that, to me, is thank God for DeSantis. Actually, DeSantis is leading the nation with this move. This is something I think President Trump wants to see across the whole country. And DeSantis is actually out ahead of the rest of the country on this. And Willie is a prime example. He knows what needs to be done. He's been doing it, really, from a private sector. He's been doing it and taking some of the guys in that are probably some of the toughest situations and are making a difference and turning these guys around. But it can be done.
Absolutely, it can be done. And I'm excited about the what's moving forward. Like I said, I always tell people, win or lose, I'm not going anywhere. I'm still, and people have seen it's proven. I don't go anywhere. And I don't know whether I run. I always say I'm not going to run, but then somehow I get talked into it or get there. So yes,
I really feel, Willie, you're going to win this election. You're going to win. And then it's going to help change the community. It's a stepping stone probably for the next role you may have, which could be Congress. I know you ran for Congress once or twice, but I think, I got a feeling you get in the state position first, making a difference there, and then you run for Congress, and next time get in. And then you have a bigger voice and a bigger seat and a bigger ability to make a difference in not only your community, but even a broader community. So that's why I support you. And that's why I will continue to do that. And I think that this is the way to make a difference. We have to, for a long time, the church, I'm going to say it from our perspective, back in the 70s and 80s, the church were told to stay out of politics. Well, that was the biggest mistake we ever made. We have to put Christians in position where it can make a difference in the communities. And so we have to, okay. We tried the other way. That didn't work. And so you can see there's a shift going on right now across America. Let's hope this continues because it can make a difference in our country.
Right.
And so I wanted to add to that though, Pastor. So Willie, I'm not going to go in through all of the specific things that are on your website as far as what you're running on. Because fortunately, local debates are actually pretty good about asking those questions. But I did want to ask you, what are your thoughts about bringing your faith into politics?
You know, I've had people come to me even after me running for Congress this last time, and surprised that they are, a Republican and they ran also for office. And it's always, Willie, I think next time you should do this, and this is the reason. And I always say this to them is that when I sought out to do this, it was through prayer. And it was through me saying that I'm going to obey the steps that God. And if I had the time for each story I could share with when I ran for Congress, it was almost near impossible for me to get on that ballot. It had to absolutely be God, because it was literally like 24 hours, and I needed $10,440 to get on the ballot. We didn't have money in the bank. The first time I ran was back during the COVID era, which the banks were closed. We didn't have the signature. We had to drive. It was wild, but we made it. The second time, the same thing. It's like every time was always like that last minute thing, and everybody's like, "Willie, I just don't think you're going to make it this time." So just maybe it's not what God want. I'm like, no, I prayed. This is what God's want. I'm telling you that I'm going to get up there, and it always happened. Even with me running for this race here, it was they made the announcement. They gave you only what was it? Basically, like 2 days to be able to get the money to get on the ballot. And here we are. We ordered the checks. Now we had to have checks. It has to be written out in the name of your campaign. We ordered the checks. The checks never came. I checked every day. Wait, never came. Never came. We found another solution to that. Found the checks was actually never actually ever ordered, so they would have never came. We would have been waiting for nothing.
Oh, no.
And so we got there, we're like, where, how we going to get this money? And then I have my team like, Willie, I just don't, I don't see it coming in. And so I was just working, I'm typing, I'm pushing it out, I'm seeing it. And then just the money just started flowing in. And then something that has never happened in all the races, I get a phone call from the Senate committee who helps with campaigns, who said, Willie, we're going to send 2 checks. And we're looking at this race. We're going to send 2 checks to help, smaller checks, but it was what we needed to actually help really to get on the ballot. But two, it was also to help so I can initially get some palm cards, get some yard signs. And so I started to say that, my faith and me standing, because even when I got people around me that are, Christian per se, they just don't have the faith, or they're the kind that's like, Willie, I'm just, if I don't see it, I get it, you're a faith person, but I'm a believer. I'm a true believer that because I have prayed and I have sat in his presence, and this is what I know within my spirit to do, that's what leads me. Every initiative from House of Timothy to community initiatives to running for Congress, I don't just do it. It's like things, I had one of my campaign managers who knew me from Bible college, and he told everybody, said, Willie tell you that this is what he's getting his spirit, just do it. It may sound insane. It may not look like it would be typical for you to do it in politics, but it is going to work. And that's exactly what happened when I ran for Congress. I've ran before, didn't get past the primary. This last time I said no more. Whatever it is that God tells me to do, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to listen to anyone else. And we won. We got up there. I said, this is how we're going to do it. This is how we're going to pray. He gave me strategy on how to send out emails. He told me that day, I promise to you, when we went to go hand out signs, he said, stop at 5 o'clock, turn your phones off, and I want you to come, turn your face to me and pray, and you're going to have the victory. I went and I did all the instructions. Everybody's like, Willie, why are you not out there waving signs? This polls don't close till 7. Why are you not doing it? I cut everything down. I came, I asked somebody to drop me off to the house. I shut everything down. I laid there literally when I woke up out of praying and came, it was literally 7 o'clock, which was when the polls closed. I said, I'm just going to wait. I turned on my phone, people saying, going. Finally, I was the last race. They refused to call my race because they probably could not believe that I won, because literally I think in that race, we maybe have raised $2,000. My opponent has spent well over $20,000, $30,000, and put 2,000 yard signs all over Orange County. We put up maybe 70 yard signs. That's all we was able to do. And so that is where my faith lies in, is that we didn't have what others had, but God still did it. And
Right.
so, I just don't turn that away. And, even though it's come to me, Willie, everybody doesn't believe believe. I can't help how you believe, but I've seen him do it for me in my races in House of Timothy. I've seen him do it too many times. And so, I'm going to still keep talking about Jesus. I'm still going to do that. I mean, everybody know when I go and give my speeches for politics, it always turns into a sermon anyway.
They already know what's coming. Amen. Amen.
Well, Willie, where can people find you? How's Timothy, and then also running for District 15 there?
Yeah, sure. So House of Timothy is houseoftimothy.org. That's .org. And then Team Willie, that's WILLIE team. .com. And so those are two websites. You can see what we're about for both. You can follow me on social media. All of my handles is just Willie J Montague. So Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all of those, not TikTok. I am on TikTok, but X or Twitter. So I'm on all platforms, the same handle. And you'll follow me there and see. I'll be posting a whole lot more coming up on the political side in a couple of weeks, or by the end of this week, as we're getting closer to the Democrat primary. This last week here, or this week here, I'll be focused a lot on House of Timothy. As I said, is our 10-year anniversary, and we're just trying to do a big fundraising push to be able to carry us over for the next couple of months. But other than that, all the stuff that I ever post or do is there. And you get to see some neat clips and stuff, because I'm on a TV show now called Point of View, where I get to give my viewpoint on politics and different things. So follow me on social media.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Willie, for joining us today and for sharing your story, not only with me and Pastor, but for the audience and potential voters for you as well. Your insights and your heart for service. It's been inspiring to hear about your faith, your leadership, and your life experiences, and your vision for shaping Florida locally and as a state as a whole. We encourage everyone listening here to get involved and visit our guest page that we set up for Willie. You can go to paulbegleypodcast.com, or just look in the description in this video and click on it. That'll have all of Willie's links as well to his socials if you want to follow it that way. Thank you again, and God bless you in your journey ahead, Willie.
Thank you.
God bless you, Willie.
God bless. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us today on the Paul Begley Podcast. New episodes will be released every Tuesday on all major podcast streaming platforms. For a video recording of this episode, you can watch and subscribe on our YouTube channel at Paul Begley Podcast. Hey guys, we want you to connect with us. Follow us on X and Twitter at Paul Begley Pod. We'd love to hear your questions you want us to answer on the show. For additional Paul Begley content, go to our website at paulbegleyprophecy.org. If you've thought about it, we'll talk about it. Paul Begley Podcast.